Welcome to our Fireside Chat. Today we'll be discussing some of the challenges retailers face when engaging their customers across channels and how a CDP has helped solve those challenges so they could help drive increased profit and revenue while maximizing their resources. I'm Renee Graff from Redpoint Global, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. Today we're talking with Rachel Hoy and Tim Perry. Rachel is a seasoned CRM operations leader with extensive experience driving customer engagement and enhancing workflow efficiencies at major retail brands like DSW and Bath & Body Works. Tim is a career consultant and advisor within the data, marketing, and analytics space. He's the co-founder of Solvena and has worked with more than 150 companies inside and outside of retail, the likes of Hallmark, DSW, Liberty Mutual Insurance, Hilton, and more. Hello, Rachel and Tim. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Renee. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Let's get right into our conversation. Our first question for each of you is about the customer experience or CX challenges brands are trying to overcome that lead them to a CDP or customer data platform. Rachel, can you start us off and share some of the customer engagement challenges that your teams have faced?
Sure. So what initially drove us to consider a CDP were several different factors and challenges that we were noticing in the retail industry. So as a customer, not just a marketer, you are obviously faced with trying to get the attention of customers across several different retailers. So how do you best capture their attention? Well, by utilizing data. So some initial issues that we were trying to solve for were kind of considering how do we best ensure that we're leveraging our data correctly? So in our customer file, if we have a situation where a customer is eligible for more than one offer, maybe they're new to file, but they also typically buy in a specific category. How do we make sure that we're personalizing and we're prioritizing the best offer for them instead of giving them 2 coupons at one time? So how do we leverage a CDP to solve that type of issue? And also, how are we able to partner with our analytics partners to better look at campaign tracking information and using that in reporting so that we can make better and informed decisions in the future? What type of data are we able to leverage, but also what are we getting back so that we can use it better in the future? And then also considering time savings. So right now, a lot of retail teams are working more lean. The expectation is that we're able to support more complex campaigns, but typically with a tighter turnaround, depending on business challenges, business performance, business changes. How do we work quickly and efficiently with what we have? So considering the ability to save time and while also prioritizing accuracy with campaigns. And then lastly, all the fun data that we have, how are we best leveraging that to provide a personal experience? So with a powerful tool at our disposal, how are we able to kind of leverage that correctly and appropriately for our customers to provide the best experience possible?
Okay. Tim, in your experience working with brands on CX, what kinds of challenges have they brought to you that made you consider a CDP as part of a solution?
Sure. Well, from a pure business perspective, very broad challenges such as like the need to reduce churn, increase revenue, attract new and retain customers, all very much top of mind in retail right now. But when we look at like the underlying symptoms or causes for those, some of the ways that we can help to improve upon those are the things that lead you to the CDP. And the biggest, most common is the customer data challenges. Rachel hit on a lot of great points and hit on this as well, but the customer data challenges is always that starting point, is very, very common. Now, before I go much further though, I do want to define a CDP here, at least for this conversation. A lot of people define a CDP differently or amongst 2 or 3 people, they're going to have different definitions. But for right now, we're looking at the CDP, that customer data platform, as the ability to ingest, cleanse customer data from around the organization or enterprise, the ability to segment that data, target people, and ultimately use that and push that for activation across channels. So getting back to the question, we talk about customer data challenges, specifically the holistic view of a customer. People talk about silos or fragmented data, and really the customer data platform is a means to fixing that, along with a cloud data warehouse. But getting that data into a central clean spot is a key ingredient for then supporting other marketing initiatives. A second common thing is the inability to support real-time interactions. There's been a lot of email marketing, SMS marketing, but the ability to support real-time interactions by looking up that customer. Do we already know about this person? Anonymous to known, in being able to engage with the customer at their preferred channel is a key piece at the right time or in real time. And the other item there, I mentioned channels. So disconnected channels. Like sources, if the information is disconnected and you can't push that customer data information to your social media platform or your paid media platform or to email, et cetera, as a consistent messaging, then that's a challenge. So disconnected channels is another challenge in which CDPs certainly help solve. And maybe last is just the uncertainty about what tactics are really working. So the data challenges, the disconnected channels, all that leads back to that word I mentioned moments ago, which is fragmented data. And when you have fragmented data, it makes it really hard to see what is working and what is not. It's no surprise, attributing a return on investment in marketing is difficult, but it is possible to show in a few different ways within attribution and revenue attribution, response attribution, et cetera. And the CDP is a key ingredient to establishing that and providing that information for the analytics teams, Renee.
Thank you. So moving on to the next question. Rachel, once the need for a customer data platform was identified, how did your organization go about addressing that need?
Yeah, great question. So throughout my career, I've been lucky enough to be able to work on some larger projects where you move to a new tool. And I think it can sometimes be a little overwhelming to make a change or choose something new, but very exciting for the business overall. But to ensure that you're successful, I think something to make sure that is always done is to have key players in those conversations. So identifying your users, making sure that they have a seat at the table to kind of discuss current state processes and then potential future state. But in my experience, so you have representatives from the business, from marketing, folks from analytics, from your data science team, and you also want to make sure that there are IT partners present. Obviously, this is a highly collaborative project that would be taking place, but ensuring that not only everybody's needs are met in terms of what they would like to accomplish with the new CDP, but are we able to support what is already currently in place? So underlying data structures, are those able to be leveraged? Are they able to be moved? Are they able to be used in a way that doesn't disrupt anything that's currently running? Because it is a big change, but very exciting, like I mentioned. But kind of getting folks into a room, making sure you're having those discussions, putting pen to paper and actually writing out your business requirements. So coming up with some use cases, things that you can make sure that you're accomplishing when you have your new tool in place. Thinking about timelines too. So obviously there's a importance with making sure that IT is able to support timelines, but in retail, there are really big moments throughout the year. So if you think about your experience as a customer, holiday shopping season is huge, regardless of what industry you're in retail. But making sure that you don't run into any issues where you're implementing a new tool, you have high business volume and need, and that you're still trying to balance day-to-day work with project work and everything else. You want to make sure that you are able to focus on your implementation and work supporting this type of project. So looking at that, but then in terms of considering needs also, it's thinking about what you have current state. Are you selecting a tool that's able to support the volume of data that you have? So the millions of customer records you have, do you have a high volume? How segmented and how robust does your targeting get? Because you want to make sure that you also select a tool that's able to actually support that. So considering all of those different things. And also another key thing to consider is having a conversation with the vendor that you're working with to say, are there any limitations that we might face based on our current state? Are there things that we should consider in the future? Do you have things that you're planning for to implement? So ensuring that you kind of start that relationship off strong and say that, this is expected to be a long-term partnership. We want to succeed and we want to make sure that you're helping us succeed. So considering all those things and how exciting it'll be when you have a new tool at your disposal.
I can imagine things get really complex when you're dealing with, orchestrating all of those customer journeys when you have a major, brand that is nationwide or even larger.
Yes, it's never a dull moment.
Tim, when your team gets engaged, or for brands who are doing this on their own, what are some of the initial steps that you recommend that they should complete when picking or implementing or upgrading their CDP?
Yeah, and the other common scenario we've been brought upon recently is when people are replacing a prior CDP. And that's why we want to avoid those things throughout this conversation with some tips. But Rachel hit on the most important is making sure that you have the key players involved in the process. A lot of times it is a disconnected sort of evaluation. People may not be as familiar with the day-to-day, as Rachel pointed out. So that is a key takeaway for everybody. The other one that I would call out is make sure to spend some time to document and define and vet what capabilities you are trying to enable with this new platform. As I mentioned before, within a CDP, there's different definitions, but then there's acronym palooza, right, in this space, because you have MDM, ETL, RETL, ESPs, SMS, CDP. So what component, what features, what things are you really trying to achieve? And I use the word capabilities maybe even as a higher level than specific use cases or specific detailed requirements. Start with the core capabilities that you're trying to unlock, that real-time piece and some of the other portions. Get agreement and alignment from those key players on what those capabilities are that you're seeking in a platform and what maybe isn't best served for this platform versus something else, which then ties to how does this fit into your existing MarTech stack? Rachel mentioned the data that you need to consider, the volumes, can it support the granularity of your campaigns or maybe your state-by-state compliance, but also how does it fit and integrate with some of the other technologies that you have? Just because something may be owned by one vendor and there's a bunch of different modules, do those even communicate with one another? And is it easy to data share across platforms? And especially as you tiptoe into the world of composable, making sure that those things connect with one another. Which leads me to making sure that as you evaluate the CDPs and these technologies, take a look at the origin for where those companies came. Again, all CDPs are not created equal. Some are more digital only oriented. Some were purpose built for complex integration across channels. And so those are things you have to look at. And so take the time to actually look at where did this company start? Were they really part of the CDP capabilities that you are seeking? Or is it more marketing activity and sales activity in the recent year or two that has now put them into that CDP category? Again, tie it back to the capabilities. After that, it's standard software selection type activity. You want to narrow down your list, get it to a short list, maybe ultimately to one or two with your front runner. Do that proof of concept. Spend a little bit of time. Even if you scale that back to something tiny, you could do a proof of concept with that vendor. Try to arrange that. That will be very telling. Get through scoring, pricing, and then ultimately select it. The very last point is just as you go through this, near the end, is just try to get some alignment back to those capabilities, but also to how you're going to measure success of really the initial implementations. Don't get too greedy. Don't try to boil the ocean, but what core capabilities are you selecting and that you want to make sure are delivered within the first 2, 4, 6 months, whatever that case may be, but to have something to measure back to see, hey, we are making progress and we're gaining momentum.
So you mentioned, the capabilities and what you want to achieve. This is a great transition for me here. Rachel, what were some of the first low-hanging use cases you tried to address with the CDP?
Yeah, I think based on what Tim was just mentioning, think about how you can realistically use the new capabilities that you have. Because now at this point, you've had, keys given to you for a Ferrari. So how do you want to drive that Ferrari, but also be safe on the road? So kind of thinking about what you're able to do as a marketer and how you can kind of quickly show your leadership that they made the best decision in supporting what you selected. So I'd say some initial use cases, we're obviously focusing on personalization. So personalization in terms of channel support. As a marketer who has worked at a few different retailers that have the capabilities of speaking to customers through multiple channels, so traditional direct mail, email, SMS, push, and now paid media, how best should we speak to somebody? And is it necessary to speak to them in every channel? Personally, I'm somebody who push resonates with most, so I don't necessarily need support in all those other channels, but taking the information that I have on my customers, kind of looking to see which channel is best for the customer, but also from a business perspective, because there's costs associated with messaging in other platforms. So looking holistically at the customer and the different channels and the data that we have to support that, it would be one of the first use cases I would consider. Another one would be how do you best utilize data that you have in terms of product recommendations? So at this point, you have really robust data sets on customers who have shopped with you for probably quite some time. Some customers are older to the file, some customers are newer to the file, but in retail, as you get new products that are available to customers, how do I kind of ensure that if you are somebody who shopped recently for sneakers, is it necessary to show you sneakers, or do I kind of know that it might be best to show you that you might need socks, right? It's been a while since you shopped with us, and why not get something that is kind of a companion to the item that you shopped for recently? So considering the different data that you have to kind of make those recommendations and how best to leverage that. So another use case I would say that's really important is when we consider our customer file, the customers that are existing and that have shopped with us are just as important as customers that are new to our file. So how do we welcome them to the company? How do we teach them about the products that we have? Because at this point, it's an educational moment. We have the time and the ability to say, welcome to our file. This is what we offer, and this is how we can best support you as a customer. So utilizing the data in the CDP to kind of look at that customer's journey from start and make sure that it's a great experience for them.
Great. Tim, are these similar to things that you've seen across other organizations? Is there a common set of initial CDP use cases?
Not necessarily a common set, but yes, there certainly are trends, especially in retail over the past couple of years. Rachel hit most of them. Just to say some by name quick, and then I'll support it. But personalization, product recommendations is another key use case. Things tying into loyalty to support that broader retention and expanding the average order and just overall lifetime value, et cetera, tied back to loyalty. There's been a big push recently really to see how do we use the CDP and our marketing channels to enable memorable moments with the customer. Rachel mentioned a new customer and the ability to educate them and share them on all the different products that you have. That can be a very memorable moment. It can also be at times when they've run into an issue or a gotcha somewhere in the customer experience. And how do you optimize that and make it a memorable moment? The biggest, though, is typically more automation, right? How do we do more with less? And we need more automation. So where I'd go with that is, as a pure recommendation, is really when you do embark on a CDP implementation, again, make sure you have the key players involved, you begin that adoption journey. But here, as far as use cases, focus on quick wins. Go back to those capabilities and see, what are you trying to enable? What do we want to enable first in a priority? Can't do it all at once. Let's look for quick wins. You need that, one, for the internal team to show progress, but two, for management. They're funding this. They want to see progress. They don't want to wait a long period of time. So really, really emphasize focusing on quick wins. What are those? It could be any of the things that I just mentioned from a focus, but some of those may be too broad. So look at, hey, do you want to activate a new channel? Maybe your marketing operations team is not involved with paid media or mobile push marketing or even communicating with the customer at the point of sale. So are those channels that you can now activate as part of the initial CDP implementation to make a splash for the organization and make an impression for what the CDP is. So then ultimately, when I mentioned the automation, just blocking and tackling, as you get into those first use cases, yes, you do want those quick wins to be multi-touch, multi-channel. If you're doing more single send sort of activities from the CDP, it's probably stuff that you've been doing through your email service provider to date. The CDP is more elaborate, more sophisticated. You can do multi-touch, multi-channel. So you can get and enable those new channels that we mentioned to make it a bit more exciting from an internal perspective.
Okay, so focus, don't boil the ocean, a few key concepts.
Definitely. That is, getting those right people involved and not boiling the ocean are probably the two biggest takeaways that I would call out from our conversation so far.
Right. Thank you. All right, so moving on to the next question. So we touched some of the ways that you can interact with customers. Tim, let's lead off with you on this question. Drawing on your experience with different brands, can you identify some ways that a CDP helps retailers navigate the ongoing shifts in consumer behavior and expectations?
Yes, customer shifts in retail. There are a lot, right? Especially over the past, well, now 5+ years. Frictionless customer experiences. I'll go back to that word, personalization. Those recommendations, the channel optimization. So things to keep in mind is that the CDP now is a much more powerful capability and platform than what you may have been using from marketing automation or pure email service provider. The CDP is meant to look at the customer more holistically from a data perspective, as we talked about, and can do much more from that standpoint. So now you can get into more advanced capabilities, such as enabling broader test and learn within personalization, product recommendations, et cetera. Look at the CDPs as they're now applying more and more of the Gen AI capabilities for natural language segmentation or automated test and learn capabilities. These are things that are now exposing broader capabilities within the CDP platforms. And ultimately, the CDP will enable retailers to maintain personalized customer interactions across those channels that we talked about. So really push on that, where in the past you may have been sending a file out to one vendor, a separate data pull, and sending that off to a direct mail vendor and maybe something else to paid media. That now can be a centralized and consistent messaging platform where you're taking into consideration all of that data that we've talked about to see what channels have I communicated to that customer in the past, what have they shown preference towards, what have their responses been, and now as you recommend other offers, other discounts, other product recommendations, you can make that a consistent message. And maybe the last thing I'll call out, Renee, is really probably the least sexy for most of us on the marketing side, but is the ability of the CDP to really help within the compliance and privacy and consent arena. Really is a key stepping stone towards CCPA or GDPR and some of the other activities. So CDP is a big piece that can help organizations and marketing teams towards ensuring that compliance.
Great. Rachel, can you speak to your specific experience in this area?
Sure, yeah. As a marketer, it's so exciting that you would potentially have the ability to look at a customer holistically. I know Tim has said that a couple of times, but now with CDP, you have the ability to kind of look at that customer and all of the different data points that you have from different channels. So I know Tim mentioned, now you don't have to send all these files to all these different places. Somebody who's had to do that several times in their career, it would be very exciting to be able to do something by selecting a customer and kind of prioritizing that information in the channel that they want to be marketed to. So being able to do that, but also when you have this holistic view of the customers, it allows you to kind of see new trends that are emerging. So all the different generations of customers that you might have on your file. There's a huge push, obviously, to gain newer customers, which are typically kind of considered as, Gen Z or younger shoppers. But what about the customers who've been loyal to your file for quite some time? So millennials, Gen X, boomers, those types of folks. How do you make sure that you're still nurturing them and not alienating them as you try to grow your file, but also looking to see, are there different things that have kind of changed? So when you have the ability to market to customers in these other channels like paid media, are you able to kind of check engagement or sales that come based on the different messaging and different products that you're showing in those channels? Are there different things that you should consider when you're doing that messaging? It's really exciting to kind of consider the different potential that you have then as a marketer. But also something that can come up too is the way that you kind of show your leadership that you have the ability to look at these customers with all these data points, and to kind of go back to something that Tim mentioned, the test and learn opportunities with leadership and just the changes in retail. Sometimes it can be a bit of a challenge to kind of talk to them about changes. How do we approach customers differently? When we're talking about prioritizing channels, it sometimes translates into reducing your circulation or the number of times that you communicate to a customer. So you want to make sure that if you're reducing that count, that the messaging is more powerful and meaningful to them. But having that view of the customer, I think, allows leadership to be a lot more comfortable with those changes as well.
Great. All right. So we're getting down to the end here. I'd like to wrap this up by asking if you'd share some tips for others based on your experiences. What are some of the key lessons or advice you would share to anyone that's looking to implement something new in their MarTech stack, especially a customer data platform? Rachel, would you like to lead off?
Sure. Yeah, I think based on what Tim and I have discussed, it's so important to have your key players in the conversation. So obviously the project is going to be supported by leadership across several teams, but making sure that your key users are involved so that the tool that's selected is the best for, marketing, analytics, data science, IT, so that everybody benefits from having a tool that was selected kind of collaboratively, I think I'd say is one of the most important things to consider. But also making sure that you consider the current state of things and then the future state as well. So planning for what can we accomplish today? What do we feel comfortable accomplishing? But then thinking and planning ahead to make sure that everybody's excited about the decision, right? And the different changes that everybody will kind of see moving forward. I think right now there's a lot of buzzwords that kind of get shared where people might get really excited. Like to Tim's point, you have all those fun acronyms. And as somebody who's worked at places where they actually give you a dictionary of acronyms when you join, it's really important to make sure that you're focusing on what best benefits you, but focus on what will take the business to where you kind of see yourself long-term and how exciting it's going to be for the team when they start to implement and see those results.
Great. Tim, your advice?
Yeah, and I know we're running short on time, so I'll try to keep it brief, but the main thing I would call out is you're only as good as your data. So as you're going through this effort from a CDP perspective, focus on the data. Make sure to overinvest in the data as you go through that initial implementation. It's going to be that core foundation that you need going forward. And for those of you that need help getting funding potentially for a CDP, a little tip is some organizations are using that CDP and its data cleansing capabilities as a forerunner for leading into some of the AI initiatives that they have around the corner. Because AI has the same battle. It's only as good as the incoming data. So you can marry those things up a little bit from a budget sharing perspective. Now, that doesn't mean you have to count every grain of sand in the beach before you enjoy the ocean, right? Because you can't tie out every single column, every single record in your platform, but you do want to look at the core pieces and make sure that you do invest properly and prioritize in your data and data testing. So other things in quick order, but just CDPs are very useful as we called out, but you still need that marketing strategy to support it. Without those use cases, without those known capabilities, without that support and prioritization, the CDP will be challenged. So having a lot of those things clearly documented, defined will help the adoption and execution of the CDP. I just said it, focus on adoption next. We've mentioned that adoption is key. Those quick wins are super important. And maybe lastly, I'll leave you with this, tying to the marketing strategy comment, but is a CDP isn't purely a, hey, 2, 3, 4 month implementation and then set it and forget it. It's a starting point. You want to focus on those quick wins with a roadmap, with a plan for how you're going to evolve this platform and how it's going to help your marketing and your customer experience mature to the area that you want and adapt to those shifts in customer expectations that we talked about earlier.
Great. Well, thank you, Rachel and Tim, for this great discussion. I appreciate all of the advice you've given throughout this presentation. To those of you who are joining us today, if you're interested in learning more about Redpoint Global, please visit our website at redpointglobal.com. And thank you again, Rachel and Tim, and all of you joining us today. We look forward to connecting with you soon.
Great. Thanks so much, Renee.
Thank you.